all-around bad dude H.P. Lovecraft once wrote The Color Out of Space. It's about a meteorite that crashes into a small rural farmstead and starts to change the entire world around it. Crops are growing bigger than they were before, animals are changing in the woods nearby. The humans that live nearby are shifting the worst. Not just their bodies, but their minds too are mutating and twisting. One guy even just melts and turns to dust. It's crazy. The story ends with the local town getting so freaked out by what's happened that they decide to flood the entire area where the meteorite landed in the first place. They're hoping that they can just drown whatever that color out of space was and forget about it deep beneath the waves. Still Wakes the Deep is a game that takes a similar premise but asks the question, what would happen if humans dug it back up? This game hits a lot of good horror notes, picking at the player's fears of heights, the ocean, body horror, all while telling a story about control, surrender, and survival. This game wears its inspirations on its sleeve, and it's often called the thing set on an oil rig. Even the main character's name, McCleary, sounds pretty close to the main character of the thing, McCready. There's a lot to unpack here, so let's dive in to Still Wakes the Deep.
I still can't believe you went. What are you thinking? Going to that place? Wish you hadn't got yourself into this mess, but you did.
Our story begins on the North Sea, a cold and dangerous stretch of choppy waves and gray sky in every direction.
A lot like the weather we have out today, actually. Oh, gosh, it's nice out here. I need a cup of tea.
It is in this lonely setting we come to our hero, McCleary, or Kaz, who's currently reading a letter from his wife telling him that he needs to stop running from his problems, or the two of them are finished. That's rough, buddy. Before we can dive too deep into what all of this means, we get a knock on our door calling us to the mess hall to eat and meet some of our fellow rig workers. Not only are we going to be speaking to some of the other folks before the oil hits the fan, but we also get to root around in their rooms. The first crewmate we meet is Finley, an electrician who's fed up with how cheap everything is on this rig. She warns us that our boss, Rennick, got a letter from the mainland this morning. A letter about us. He's pretty riled up about it. We loan her our lighter as a thank you, which doesn't seem very safe on an oil rig, but I don't work on one. And we head on to the mess hall. Our cast here includes Trots, a union man with formal safety complaints from his workers' union in his cabin. Dager, who is excited to see us get fired, and definitely voted for Brexit, judging by the posters on his wall. And Brody, a really nice guy just trying to help a coworker relax before going down in a diving bell. This opening section does a great job of showcasing the relationships on board the rig. We can find brackets for a darts tournament, glimpses into everybody's politics, even a menu for Christmas dinner. It has haggis on it because this game is aggressively Scottish. It's a bit like the opening of Alien, where we get to spend time seeing how a crew live and interact with each other before everything goes horribly, horribly wrong. Just before we speak to our final character in the canteen, an announcement crackles over the loudspeaker.
McCleary, to my office. That means now, not as soon as you're ready, now.
Yep, Rennick's definitely pissed about that letter. Fortunately, we have our best friend Roy here to help clear things up. Roy is the rig's chef.
Roy's a cook.
He's a chef.
He's a cook.
Kaz tells Roy about the letter from Suze threatening divorce. We get a few clues about what this is all about from the conversation with Roy. Apparently, Kaz beat a guy pretty bad in a fight. Looks like all the boxing magazines we can find in our room weren't just for show. Our man Kaz can throw a punch. Roy's obviously concerned for us, but suggests that it might be better to just go back and face the music. Quit running and handle things head on. Depending on what Rennick has to say, we might not even have a choice. And he's calling us to his office across the rig. A crewmate named Dobby interrupts our conversation to mention that Trots left some insulin for Roy in his cabin. And with that, we head outside to go talk to the boss. I love the atmosphere on this rig. We step outside to a gray and rainy day with creaking metal and towering construction all around us. The way the sunlight is just barely making it through the clouds, while the horizon is hardly distinct from the ocean below it, makes this whole place feel like we're floating in a dream. There is no world beyond this rig. Nothing exists outside of this rickety island falling apart beneath our feet. Not only is this setting great for feeling isolated and knowing that no help is gonna come when things go bad later, but it's also a perfect representation of McCleary's psychology. He knows that prison is waiting for him back home, and now this piece of safety is threatening to collapse under his feet. What a setting. Walking across the deck, we meet a few more crewmates like Mir and Inez, who are teasing each other, and Roper, who says something seems a little bit wrong with the drill today. And the way all these guys are talking, it sounds like the rig has a lot of issues. Shaky equipment, safety violations, but Rennick's the kind of boss who plows ahead no matter the cost. And now we get to go meet him, especially when he keeps yapping over the loudspeaker about how impatient he is for us to get there. But before we leave, we are given the most powerful tool in our arsenal, a device that will grant us access to the entire rig. We are given our screwdriver. In a super dangerous toss, by the way. What have you missed, Scooby? Huh? You gotta put someone's eye out tossing tools around here. The screwdriver is great, and it plays a big part in how we're gonna move through this game. Still Wakes the Deep is more of a hallway than an open world. There's always one correct way to go through claustrophobic paths that briefly open up into grander areas before returning to tunnels again. Along the way, we are going to use this screwdriver to pop open vents and crack locks in a sequence of tactile button prompts. It's reminiscent of Alien Isolation and how in that game you had to go through the motions of being an engineer while surviving a horror story. The academic word for this feeling is verisimilitude, meaning the illusion of reality in a work of fiction. We perform these tasks because it's something Kaz knows how to do, even though my monkey brain has no idea how an oil rig works. And the fact that these actions to unlock doors aren't instant also adds some drama to a few scenes later on. You'll see what I mean later, but for now, let's go talk to our boss. Kaz walks to Rennick's office like a prisoner approaching the guillotine. We know what this is about. We know this won't be pleasant. But there's nowhere else to go on this rig, so let's do it. Rennick tears into Kaz. He's furious that the police are here, probably because of all the safety violations. And he shows off his ego, calling himself the king of the rig. He's the kind of guy who's pissed at everybody, but we painted a target on our back and called the cops to his front door, so he's letting all this rage loose on Kaz. His self-important tirade only lets up when Gibbo, one of the men having breakfast with Trotz earlier, calls to say they've hit something. Rennick, ever the cautious one, demands that they drill through whatever it is and fires us on the spot. That's it. Our doom has come. Police have found us, and all that's left is to walk to the helicopter and face the music. This is the moment our life on the rig ends.
Jesus, Gregor! Gregor!
An explosion rocks the rig and a crewmate falls over the edge. Kaz rushes to help the man barely hanging on for his life, but he's out of reach and there's nothing Kaz can do. Immediately, a second explosion tosses us over after him, and we're treated to a first-person fall into the abyss. Everything just changed. Something happens to us down in the dark. Our vision swims with strange images. We hear sounds like a thick liquid flowing past our ears, and everything's seen through this filter like burning film reel or pooling oil. Through the haze, we see a memory of Kaz at home. Suze and Roy are discussing the fight and the trouble Kaz has gotten himself in. It's a quick glimpse at the tension at home just before Kaz left for the rig, a dream of what was before we are yanked back into what is. We're alive! Douglas and Brody have pulled us up from the waves. Somehow we survived our fall and we're back on the rig. We walk out the door to find Brody at the diving bell his friend was talking about earlier. The man inside is screaming and banging around. Brody needs our help to pull the bell in and check on him, but even as we finish the task and leave Brody to it, there's this lingering feeling that something worse than an explosion has happened. But there's no time for us to stop and check on what it is. We need to get to the top of the rig and see what the damage is. The only way to the top is under the bottom. Welcome, my friends, to the platforming tutorial. This section of the game is my nightmare. Everything is crumbling and we have to crawl, climb, and jump our way over massive drops into the ocean. The one we were just pulled out of. And this is just the beginning. The whole rest of the game is going to be navigating this wreck of a rig. And just when I thought things couldn't get worse, we see it. An eerie and beautiful light shines through the fog, revealing this twisting thing spiraling up into the rig. Whatever we drilled into has come up to meet us, and nothing about it feels right. Even standing this close to whatever it is causes the edges of our vision to blur with that strange oily texture from our earlier vision. Kaz can almost hear something coming from it. The game now adds to my paranoia by introducing the hold on mechanic. You see, throughout this game, holding on to the rig is an active choice that the player has to make. You have to hold on to ladders before you climb them. You have to hold on to ledges to grab them, and you have to hold on to whatever you can when whatever that thing growing up through the rig is starts trying to shake you off into a deadly fall. Now let's take a minute here and appreciate how awesome this setup is. We met our cast of characters, walked around our setting, and practiced the mechanics that we're going to be using to navigate the place. But this is a horror story, and there's one secret ingredient we have yet to introduce. It's time to meet a monster. We're not alone down here. Someone or something is snarling in the dark, and it looks like someone might have even been hurt around here. Kaz runs into Finley, who tells us all that howling is coming from a man. Apparently after the explosion, some of the oil sprayed on Gibbo, and ever since he's been acting weird and violent. He actually attacked Finley, but she was able to lock him on the other side of the door. The side that we're on. Great, we're down here with a madman. And possibly worse. John Carpenter would be proud. Officially, the game calls whatever this is the Shape. I'm gonna be calling it a lot of stuff, but if it touches you, it can do that to you. This whole section has me on edge, creeping waist deep in water and not even really knowing how the stealth mechanics work yet. It's so disorienting down here, and all I've got is a flashlight and a dream as gross slurping noises are echoing all over the place. Gibbo is still talking though, and whatever happened to him, he doesn't seem to want us to see it. He wants us to leave, to go away, to stop moving further. And then we find out why.
Douglas? Jesus. No. You can't be.
This is no longer an accident or a natural disaster. We are now being hunted. Gibbo seems pretty torn up about it, but I don't have time to sit down for therapy, so we're just gonna climb up and out of here. Things are going wrong all over the rig. More of that growth is showing up, and phone calls tell us that something's gone wrong in engineering. But worst of all is what we find in the lounge area.
Is that you in there? Trots? Trots, is that you? I can't
We
hear you.
hear Trots caught by that stuff as that same unearthly light shines through the door. What even is it? It looks like fins? Tentacles? And it's also pulsing or pumping something through it like veins. Is oil flowing through it? The oil that got on Gibbo and made him crazy? Oil is kind of eldritch when you think about it. I mean, it's the bodies of plants and animals from millions of years ago that have melted into sludge, and now we burn it to make our laundry machine work. Our society is powered by burning ghosts. We get back up to our bestie Roy. He's not doing so hot without his insulin, but everything will be fine as long as we get out of here. Roy, you stay here, buddy. We're gonna go check out the lifeboats. Come on. Okay, so the lifeboats aren't gonna work. Looks like all those corners we're gonna cut are coming to bite us. At least that means we can kick through some of the cheaper gates around the place. Alright, boats out, choppers in. Let's get back up to the main deck. Now, so far, we've been getting glimpses of what can happen when this shape gets a hold of you. We've heard Gibbo going mad, and we've seen someone chewed up. We haven't seen anyone spit back out.
Jesus.
I don't even know what I'm looking at. I don't know what I'm looking at most of the time I see this stuff. I especially don't know what that is. This is our first true stealth section of the game. In Still Wakes the Deep, you cannot fight the monsters. They will one-shot you if you're caught, and they are all faster than you. The only way to survive these scenes is by hiding in vents and throwing objects to distract the monsters. Being hunted by a meatball man is terrifying enough, but what makes it worse is that there's still something human inside. Throughout this game, you will hear the monsters complaining about things that they were annoyed by before they changed. You'll see them doing things that would almost make sense to their past selves. The shape has twisted their minds and bodies, but they still hold on to who they were. It's great body horror. We don't get to see too much of Trotz's new personality here, but don't worry, this isn't the last we'll see of him. For now, we can sneak past and out onto the deck. Oh cool, it got worse. We're gonna have to navigate fast because Rennick won't wait long at the helicopter for us. As long as nothing else gets in our way, we should be fine.
Dobby! Christ almighty.
Muir has become a monster. A significantly bigger monster than Trotz was. This is a good time to bring up how symbolic the monster transformations can be in this game. See, the shape seems to have this effect where it brings out whatever a person craves or obsesses over. We didn't get to know Muir too well as a human, but as a monster, he seems obsessed with keeping people close and not being left behind. He's shouting into the fog about how he wants everyone to stop running and stay right where he can see them, and so the shape turned him into a towering mass of eyes scanning the deck so nothing escapes his sight. The only thing giving us a chance here is the fog obscuring the area. Even I have trouble seeing through all this. Wreckage up here is just as disorienting as down below. Luckily, someone kindly went around and put yellow paint on all the useful parts of the map. Innes helps us navigate the space and even holds the door to the elevator for us to make it. Muir isn't about to let anyone go that easily. A tendril shoots out of the fog, yanking Innes off into the distance. Before we can even process that gut punch, Rennick reminds us how much he sucks by taking off when we're on the helipad. I'd feel worse about it if he didn't immediately crash back into the rig, but still, rude. Okay, so let's take stock of our situation so far. An alien monster is crawling its way up the rig, turning our crewmates into other monsters. Lifeboats and helicopter are gone, and Roy still needs his insulin. Kaz thought the cops coming after him was going to be the worst thing that happened today. Okay, so the only way we're getting off this rig now is by radioing for help. And while we got a bunch of radios on board, there's only one set of generators to power them, and we have to make sure they don't explode on us. That means heading back down into the belly of the beast. Well, at least now that Rennick went down with the helicopter, we won't have to hear him yelling at us the whole time. I can't tell you how nice it is to be rid of that guy.
Jesus fucking Christ!
Huh. I stand corrected. Our boss is back and worse than ever. You thought he had a big ego before, now he's literally all head. Where Muir had us in a game of cat and mouse, Rennick has us running for our lives. We couldn't hide from that meeting with him this morning, and we can't hide from him now as we sprint through the ruined admin block. And that advice he gave us earlier about just kicking through stuff, yeah, he took that to heart. This man burst through more walls than the Kool-Aid Man, and it takes a pressure door to finally block him off. It's fast-paced, it's heart-pounding, and it's a cool new monster design. Back down in engineering, we meet up with Finley and fill her in on the plan. We should be able to get the generators to work using a tried and true trend in horror fiction, pushing a bunch of buttons. This formula can get anything to work in a horror game, but only if a monster's chasing you down, and luckily, we have one on hand. Let's bring in our pal Dager. If Muir was observant and Rennick was aggressive, Dager is both at once. He prowls around the engineering deck, trash-talking McCleary and grumbling about the other crewmates. While I do think he has the best gameplay of all the monsters on the rig, his design is the least impressive. He's sort of just a blob with limbs flopping around, and it doesn't really say anything to me other than, this is a monster. I actually think the environment he inhabits reveals more to us. Engineering looks like a rave hosted by Yog-Sothoth. Earlier in the game, there was a clear distinction between machine and this growth, but now they're starting to blend together. Just like the crewmates, if you think about it. Metal is starting to fuse with flesh, cables are starting to look like veins, and everything is twisting and mixing together. Dager chases us until we can get the generators going again and give Brody a call. Now we can radio for help, but we're gonna have to be alive when the rescue arrives, and the whole rig is currently sinking. So now we head off to climb, jump, and swim our way down to fix it. We clock in our hours as a repairman and leave the lower levels via this elevator that's been completely surrounded by the shape. Even though this stuff is essentially the villain of the game, even Kaz can't deny this is kind of pretty. It's a rare, slow moment when this game just lets us sit and be dragged upward into that strange, shimmering light. And we can almost forget all the trouble that it's caused us. Now, with all the oil on the deck and the gas in the lower levels, this place is a time bomb. One spark could set it off, and the flare the rig uses to burn excess gas is currently damaged. We've got to head out and fix it while Dager comes back to stand in our way. Oh look, the man who wants to bring back capital punishment's trying to kill us. Shocker! In fact, he's so determined that Dager chases us all the way out to the flare. What gets me in this scene is how Kaz is still trying to appeal to what's left of Dager's humanity. He shouts back at the monster that he's trying to save them both, and that Dager needs to stop or he's gonna get hurt. But in the end, the Dager monster gets caught up in the flare and our first monster burns its way down into the ocean. We have but a moment to savor this victory before the flare arm collapses, tossing us back down to the lower levels of the rig and knocking us out cold into another vision. We're back in the house with Suze, and this time we get some important new context for the fight and its consequences. Turns out that fight had some history to it. Kaz claims that guy had always been upset that he got with Suze back in school and has just been waiting for a chance to move in ever since. And that's not all in the telenovela. By running away, Kaz has put their house in danger of being taken because everything's in his name. McCleary really just caused a bunch of problems for the people in his life and ran off to a rig hoping it would blow over. He'd rather have Rennick for a boss than go to therapy. That's fucked up. Kaz does at least seem to have some clarity as he wakes back up in my favorite place, the bottom of the rig again. Yay! Okay, it's not that bad. We get out of there pretty quick, but it's still freaky. Especially when you see this red light on the waves and just how far the goop has grown through the rig. We meet back up with Brody and Finley, who have one last-ditch effort to survive until help arrives. Oil and gas are still flooding everywhere, and the rig is filling up fast. If we can detach the rig, it should float away from all that trouble. I'm not gonna lie, I never looked up oil rigs before working on this video, but apparently it can work, and Brody wants to try it, so that's what we're gonna do. First things first though, Roy still needs his insulin. We end up back where we began in accommodations. Everything's wrecked, and along with the new growths everywhere, the water itself has an oil shine on top of it. This little rainbow film that looks an awful lot like that blur we get on the edge of our screen when monsters are nearby. And we've been swimming in this stuff for a while. Let's be real here. There's no way we're not infected. Still though, it could be worse. We could be one of the guys Trotz found. Oh yeah, Trotz is back. He's been a busy little bee in the living area since we left. In life, he was a union man, looking out for the welfare of his fellow employees. Now, he's a twisted caretaker, placing the macabre bodies of his friends on book thrones, at their desks, even on the toilet. That community and caretaking aspect of Trotz's character has been focused on and warped by the shape, into building a messed up dollhouse. Trotz stalks us through the halls and chases us through vents until we find the insulin in Roy's room, right where Trotz left it this morning. We end the sequence with Monster Trotz grabbing our ankle and shouting that he needs to make things the way they were before debris crushes him right before our eyes. I find this transformation really interesting. Trotz is both the smallest and most recognizably human of all the monsters we see in the game. Where Dager seems to hate everyone on the rig and became a meatball, Trotz seems to have really cared for his team and remained mostly humanoid. Rennick was a tyrant of a boss who became a giant head that fills the hallway as you run from him, while Trotz was a community man who stayed small enough to stay in the community living space. Mira became super tall to search for everyone outside. Trotz stayed low to the ground and tucked corpses into bed. It really goes to show how much the developers thought about not only the monster design, but what it says about the humans they used to be. Reaching the roof, Kaz sees a truly alien sight. Through the driving rain, we see that the shape has bloomed into an enormous spiral all over the ship. These spires are something from another world. They give off an eerie violet light, and even the debris around them is spiraling up against gravity itself, as if the shape is defying the very Earth it has been released from. It's like the palace of Slanesh floating on the ocean. At least we have Roy. The world can end for all we care, just as long as we get Roy his medicine. We fought our way through this entire rig several times over, and it'll all be worth it once our best friend is feeling well again.
Roy, talk to me, big man. Come on, Roy. Roy, wake up, you prick.
But it's too late.
Please wake up. Wake up, come on.
Roy is already gone by the time we reach him. Out of all the deaths that we've witnessed in this game, this one hits the hardest. Not just because Roy was Kaz's best friend, but because the shape had nothing to do with it. We've known since the beginning of the game that Roy needs his insulin, and we were reminded of it every time we saw him. Yet Kaz continued to do what he always does. Put the rig first, and just hope his loved ones will be alright on their own. All we can do now is try to survive. Everything is a mess. The rig is as smashed as Kaz's world, and we're barely clinging on as the shape continues to demolish everything in its path. The rig truly feels more monster than machine at this point. Kaz makes his way to Marine Control, where we find Roper blown apart by the shape and fused into his chair. We have to flood the lower levels in here with Finley's guidance, but the phone that we use to talk with Finley is in the room with Roper. It's surprisingly tense just waiting to see if he's gonna transform and lunge at us while we're on a call, or even taking keys out of his hand. But we do finish flooding the lower levels and head back to meet the rest of our crew. Traveling through the flooded hallways, we're treated to more of the madness creeping into McCleary's mind. First, he hears his wife scolding him for not watching their children, and later gets an impossible phone call from Suze about how the kids are lost. Now, I can't tell if this is meant to be the shape messing with Kaz's mind, or it's just the guilt over losing Roy that's really finally getting to him, but we're definitely not playing a sane character anymore. It's almost a relief when Rennick comes back to shake things up. I gotta be honest with you, this sequence is pretty disappointing. It's nowhere near as interactive as Rennick's first chase. We really just run down a hallway as it starts to flood with water. And it all ends with Rennick getting stuck behind a smashed bit of wall while we escape, and he drowns behind us. Not that satisfying. If I'm being charitable, we could interpret this scene as Rennick being killed by the rig he declared himself the king of. Or if we're interpreting his physical size as a representation of his ego, it could be his ego that kills him, but really we just ran down a hallway and he drowned. It is harrowing to hear that last bit of humanity in Rennick, begging us not to let him die here. But sorry dude, you always sucked, and we gotta go. Kaz finds Finley alone, despondent with a telephone. Brody's on the other end of the line and he's trapped in the pontoons we just flooded. We stay on the phone with him as the water rises over one of our last two friends. He's been the hopeful one, and now he's gone. Kaz and Finley are the only two left on board, but the color isn't going anywhere, and it's not gonna stop with them. We saw what it did to people trying to flee on a helicopter. What would it do to a rescue boat that comes to try and help the crew? The way Finley sees it, the two of them are done for, but the shape has to be stopped. And suddenly all that oil looks real useful to a lady with a lighter in her hand. Our lighter. The lighter we gave her at the beginning of the game, and she sprints off to use it. The game is now a chase scene while the rig is shaking and shuddering underneath our feet. That might still be because the color is growing and shaking us around, or it could just be from all the damage Kaz has caused, but at this point it doesn't matter. We are in the biggest OSHA violation I've ever seen. You know what happens when you violate OSHA regulations? You get workplace accidents, like a crane falling on Finley. Chase is over, and Finley has failed to detonate the rig, but this is no victory. This is our last friend in the world, crushed underneath the rig that we had all worked to maintain. We may still be breathing air, but the light from the color is shining on Finley like sunlight on the seafloor. And to me, this just says that she has already been pulled under by it. In fact, in her last minutes, Finley asks us who we hear when it's near. Kaz hears his wife Suze. Finley hears her son. This shape wants all of them, even the people its victims hear when they're close to it. The only way to be sure the crew's loved ones stay safe is to do what must be done. To finish this here and now. Finley hands us the lighter, and like that, we're the last man standing. This whole game, Kaz has been running. We've run from monsters, we've run from consequences, and we've run away from our own memories. But there's nowhere left to run. With lighter in hand, we walk into the eldritch light at the core of this shape. All around us, a pulse echoes as the shape pumps its oil up from the depths like a blasphemous heart. Here in the belly of the beast, Kaz realizes he never stood a chance against this. This is beyond him, beyond his world. It's taken and twisted everything in its path and done what was inevitable, changed it into something new. While we were fighting to hold on to the rig, our friends, our sanity, this color's ripped it all away, shaking us loose time and again. And as Kaz comes to the end of his journey, we, the player, are prompted to try the one thing we haven't before. The only thing we can do in the face of such unfathomable mystery. We strike our lighter, and we let go. Still Wakes the Deep is a hauntingly beautiful game. It's the story of a man who let jealous paranoia drive a wedge between himself and his family, then tried to run away from the consequences. At every turn, this story reminds us of Kaz's desperation to cling on to the way things are, while also turning both change and stagnation into nightmares. For the stagnation bit, we can read the crewmates being fused into the walls as representation of how being stuck destroys us just as much as changing can. The monsters some of our crewmates become are all deeply reflective of who they were before transforming into their darker selves. Muir can even be found at the end of the game, crushed like Finley beneath the debris of the rig, but still holding on to the body of Inez. Lovecraft's stories mostly stemmed from his fear of everything that was outside of his hometown. All the monsters and humans are really just representations of outside forces arriving in his world and changing things up, and that terrified the man. The Color Out of Space is an excellent example of this because no one understands where it came from. Something fell from the sky, changing the landscape, animals, and people where it landed, until eventually it just had to be flooded beneath the waves, and people forgot about it, or at least hoped that they would. Still Wakes the Deep takes this premise and develops it in a really beautiful way, taking it a step further and examining how not only is it scary to change, it's also scary to stagnate. One of my favorite moments in this game is that simple elevator ride up through the twisting shape. We just sit back, stop fighting, and allow the lift to carry us upward towards the light. This ascent into the beautiful unknown is echoed at the end of the game. Just after the blast from Kaz's lighter, we find ourselves swimming up through a dark tunnel towards a beautiful light. And all the while we hear fragments of conversations between Kaz and Suze. But this time it's not hostile. Kaz isn't focused on all the bad times anymore. We're hearing them fall in love. We're hearing them get engaged. All the beautiful moments of their lives changing and coming together. Here, in the end, it's only by moving forward that Kaz is able to remember the good times with the woman he loved. Because change can be lovely. Change can be terrifying. Change cannot be avoided. We guide McCleary through a final memory of home. After learning that he has a sick Burt Reynolds mustache, we guide Kaz through the door and out into an eternal, turbulent sea, while Suze reminds us one final time that she loves him. The Color Out of Space ends with the nearby villagers hoping to bury this strange thing they didn't understand beneath the waves, crossing their fingers they can forget about it and move on. Still Wakes the Deep begins with a man attempting the same in his personal life, before showing us how nothing truly stays down in the depths forever, and how sometimes all we can do in the face of those mysteries in the deep is stop fighting for control and let go.
Hello, welcome to the end of the video. This is about a month after I filmed all of that, and I promise this is a different cup of tea. I'm happy with how this came out. Did you like it? I liked it. If you made it this far, you must have seen the whole thing, and for that, thank you very much. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to actually put something like this together, and it means a lot that you actually bothered to take the time and hear everything I had to say. If you like hearing me talk and you want some more of it, I've got a little bit of Baldur's Gate content on the way. Feel free to subscribe, or if you don't want to, then don't. I'm not your dad. I'm not in charge of you. Hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Stay out of the water. Take it easy.